Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to us directly for pricing, tmosso@the1916company.com. Today we're discussing a watch launched in 2016 and made in only 188 copies across all of the different case and dial variations, meaning any given variant is far scarcer even than 188 pieces. Long since sold out, the Grönefeld 1941 Remontoire might be the most interesting watch produced by Tim and Bart Grönefeld, the horological brothers of the Netherlands. Keep in mind that not only is this watch sold out, but their order book for any new watches is closed. So if you want one, you're not going to be able to get it from the factory, but I have this one available. So in white gold, 39.5 millimeters in diameter, 10.6 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. The distance across the wrist, 47.2 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lug horns. We'll throw the watch on the wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference and it wears well. Tim and Bart actually like the bigger watches of the initial Grönefeld production years, but collectors wanted something smaller, so they launched this, the 1941 case, named after the year their father was born. He was also a horologist, and you can see it wears well. On a 16 centimeter circumference wrist, I've got plenty of clearance on either side. The lugs are nowhere near overlapping the edge of my wrist. It's a flat watch with a concave bezel, so it slides easily under a cuff. Even from over the top, I'm pulling it tight here. This exaggerates the width of the watch. It's still well inboard of the edges of my wrist. So wear with confidence on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. The strap is fascinating. It has a little bit of an orange stitch. I'm not sure if this is technically a salmon dial or an orange dial. It could be described either way, and it has been described both ways, but I like to think of it as orange because, after all, Orange Army, go Dutch sports. And you can see we have a buffalo leather strap, which is an unusual material. It has an unusual grain to it, and you can see little mottled shades that shift from spot to spot. It's also fairly thick cut and incredibly supple. It feels buttery. You can see a sheer cut side, then on the bottom, very supple once more. No gouging, no crimping. This is a brand new Grönefeld factory strap. We have a buckle, which is also white gold, and you can see in many ways it matches the form of the case, and that is design parallelism that is intended. These cases are made by artisanal process, which includes a great deal of hand cutting and scooping and finishing to get these polished, deeply grooved recesses in the edge. And you could see the hollows within the lugs, and the result of all that time and manual labor invested in making this fascinating case. It has swells of the bezel at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. You can see it's concave the rest of the way around. We have these little hollows on each lug profile, and each lug also featuring fluting, a conical Grönefeld branded crown, and then a dial, which, again, depending on your preference, is either orange or salmon, but it's made of sterling silver. So you can see there are several elements that distinguish it, including blue printing, which makes for a nice contrast, an applied satin-finished silvered scale for reading the seconds, and yes, the watch does include a hacking seconds function, so you can set it precisely to a reference time. Fired blue alpha-style hands, or sometimes described by the Grönefelds as lancet hands, and then the individual indices micro-beveled. You can see each one has facets on its side, so it has 4 flanks and then a top. Mirrored on all of those facets creates the image of a twinkling gem at each index. You can also see that the inner dial is stepped downward, and that the edge of it has been polished. We have a black polished and faceted cock for the Remontoire. It's a flyweight. It's sort of a inertia element. Helps to damp the motion, and it does activate every 8 seconds. You can see there's satination underneath it. It and its bridge have been beveled on their flanks and then mirror polished on their tops. Taking a quick look on the reverse side, the movement is an opus. The Grönefelds are veterans of Audemars Piguet Renoir Papy, and it really shows in their standard of finish. Basic stuff like triple finished bridges in stainless steel, absolutely unbelievable. This G05 movement, the 5th movement they created, you could see the separate bridge for locking and unlocking the train that feeds the Remontoire. Every 8 seconds, energy from the mainspring barrel is fed through this drivetrain, the Remontoire storing up 8 8 seconds worth of energy in its spring to run the escapement. So for the 36-hour power reserve of the watch, the balance amplitude is absolutely constant without variation, which allows for exacting regulation. All of this pivots on 36 joules, and again, the bridges, which have the shape of bell gable roofs, designed to evoke the profile of traditional Dutch buildings and Dutch houses, and you can see that is quite uncanny. Each one is made of stainless steel, which is a bear to finish, but the idea is that it's hard. That's why they do it. You have recesses that are media blasted, then you have a satin finished sort of relieved shoulder around the edge of each bridge, and then outboard of that you have true mirrored and rounded hand-finished anglage. Note the solarization on the ratchet wheel, as well as the fact that the barrel beneath it is also solarized, that the wheels themselves are of a unique design with each spoke individually split, and we do have internal beveling, which is quite impressive. We have specular finishing or black polished, achieved either with lapping paper or with diamond paste, so all these steel surfaces are mirror polished, very difficult to do. Screw heads have been chamfered in their slot as well as around their circumference, and we have these little golden chatons holding the pivot jewels, reminding you of how watches would have been made during the 19th century and the 18th century. Take a quick look. You can see there's quite a bit of satination as well on wheels and springs, and that the locking lever for the Remontoire has been full black polished and beveled on its edge. All this is 30 meters water resistant. The movement beat sway at 3 hertz. It's been free sprung for precision of adjustment and durability against shock, and to maintain positional consistency from position to position, an overcoil hairspring has been used. There's also engine turning on the base plate, which you can see well from this angle, and every individual piece in this movement is a work of art. Now, it's got a 36-hour power reserve, which isn't a lot, but again, you have perfectly symmetrical end-to-end amplitude that makes for spectacular timing during those 36 hours. And after 36 hours, a stop works will halt the mechanism. The Grönefeld's reasoning, as many watchmakers have before them, that a stopped watch is easier to recognize than a watch that is running slow. So if you notice your watch is stopped, you'll rewind it and reset it. If your watch starts to lose seconds or minutes, you may miss it and wind up late for an appointment, a train, or a plane. That is why they have a stop works to stop the operation of the watch before it can run slowly. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.